The black cleaner's twins rejected everyone, screaming, clawing, inconsolable, until they saw the Caucasian billionaire. Then everything went silent. Welcome back to our channel, family. Before we dive into this incredible story, we need to say something important. You are the reason we're here. Every like, every share, every comment, every subscriber helps us bring these powerful stories to life. We're building something special together, and we can't do it without you. So if this story touches your heart, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to join our growing community. Now, let's get into a story that will change how you see redemption. They wouldn't stop screaming. Two tiny voices, shrill with terror, filling the hotel corridor with a sound that made grown men wince. Kendra Hayes moved quickly, her cleaning cart abandoned, her heart hammering as she tried to soothe Maya and Miles. But nothing worked. Nothing ever worked. Until he walked out of Suite 2407, and the silence that followed was more shocking than the screams had been. The marble corridors of the Grandview Hotel's executive floor had never heard anything like this. Maya's screams reached a pitch that made the crystal chandeliers seem to vibrate. Miles matched her, note for shrieking note, his small body rigid with terror in Kendra Hayes' arms. She bounced him desperately, her yellow cleaning uniform already soaked with sweat and tears, his and hers both. "Shh, baby, please," Kendra whispered, her voice cracking. "Mama's right here. Mama's got you." But Miles only screamed louder, arching his back. His 18-month-old face contorted with a fear she couldn't name and couldn't fix. On the floor beside her abandoned cleaning cart, Maya thrashed in her portable playpen, her tiny hands clawing at the mesh sides. A door opened down the hallway. Suite 2289. A man in a business suit stepped out, his face twisted with irritation. "Can you control those children? Some of us are trying to work." The door slammed before Kendra could apologize. She had heard those words before. Different voices, same contempt. She had lost 3 jobs in 8 months because of moments exactly like this one. The twins didn't just cry. They screamed as if the world itself was trying to devour them. Pediatricians had no answers. Therapists suggested behavioral issues. But Kendra knew better. This wasn't defiance. This was terror. And she was the only person on earth who could calm them. Except tonight. Even that wasn't working. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She fumbled for it with one hand while still bouncing Miles, who had begun hitting her shoulder with his small fists. "Babysitter." "Sorry, emergency. Can't make it." Kendra's stomach dropped. She'd already been at the Grandview for 6 hours. Her shift didn't end for another 3. Her supervisor, Mrs. Chen, was in the ER with chest pains. There was no one to call, no one to cover, no choice but to bring Maya and Miles up from the staff break room where she'd been checking on them every 20 minutes. That had been 45 minutes ago. They'd been screaming for 37 of them. "Is there a problem here?" Kendra turned to find Marcus, the night manager, striding toward her with that expression she'd learned to dread. Professional concern masking barely concealed annoyance. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Phillips. My babysitter, there was an emergency. I just need another hour and—" Maya's scream cut through her words like a knife. Marcus winced. "Ms. Hayes, we've discussed this. The executive floor is not appropriate for—" I know. And I wouldn't have brought them if I had any other option. Please. Just give me 30 minutes. I can finish the West Wing and—" "We've had 3 complaints in the last 10 minutes. His voice was gentle but firm. "I'm going to have to ask you to clock out." The world tilted. Kendra felt the familiar sting of tears she couldn't afford to shed. Not here. Not in front of him. "Please," she whispered. "I need this job." She had needed the last 3 jobs, too. Marcus's expression softened, but his answer didn't change. "I'm sorry. Collect your things and—" Miles' scream escalated to something inhuman, a sound of pure animal panic. His small body convulsed in her arms. Maya matched him, slamming her body against the playpen with force that made Kendra's breath catch. This wasn't normal crying. This was something else, something that made her own heart race with vicarious fear. "Please, babies, please," she begged, sinking to her knees on the plush carpet, trying to hold Miles while reaching for Maya. "Please, just breathe with Mama." But they couldn't hear her. They were drowning in whatever terror held them, and she was drowning with them. More doors opened, more faces appeared, beautiful people in beautiful clothes. Staring at the black woman in the yellow uniform with the screaming brown babies who didn't belong on this floor, in this hotel, in this life. The shame was a physical weight. Kendra closed her eyes against their stares, against Marcus's hovering presence, against the reality that she was about to lose another job, another chance, another piece of the stability she'd been clawing toward since the day the twins were born. If you're already hooked by Kendra's impossible situation, do us a favor. Hit that like button right now. This story is about to take a turn that will leave you speechless. And don't forget, we need your support to keep bringing these powerful stories to life. Every like, every share, every subscription matters. The twins screamed. The world judged. And Kendra Hayes held on to her babies with hands that shook and a heart that was breaking. Then Suite 2407's door opened. The hallway seemed to hold its breath. Kendra didn't look up, couldn't look up, but she felt the shift in the air, the sudden attention redirecting from her children to whoever had just stepped into the corridor. And then, impossibly, the screaming stopped. Not gradually, not with the slow wind down of exhaustion. Completely, instantly, as if someone had flipped a switch. Kendra's eyes flew open. Miles had gone rigid in her arms, his tear-streaked face turning toward the door, toward the man standing there. Maya had pressed herself against the side of the playpen, her dark eyes locked on the same figure, wide and unblinking. The silence was more shocking than the screams had been. Kendra finally looked up at the man who had somehow stopped the unstoppable, and her breath caught in her throat. He was tall, pale, maybe 40, with dark hair going silver at the temples. But it was his expression that froze her, the way he stared at Maya and Miles with something that looked like devastation, like recognition, like a man seeing ghosts made flesh. His lips moved, shaping a single word. No. And then, unconsciously, as if his body remembered something his mind had forgotten, Preston Whitmore began to hum. The melody was soft, wordless, heartbreaking. And Kendra's twins, her impossible, terrified, inconsolable twins who had never reached for anyone but her, lifted their small arms toward the stranger, reaching, wanting, at peace. The silence felt wrong, unnatural, like the world had forgotten how to breathe. Kendra's arms tightened around Miles, instinct overriding everything else. But her son wasn't struggling, wasn't screaming. He was still, his dark eyes fixed on the man in the doorway with an intensity she'd never seen in his 18-month-old face. Maya had pressed herself against the mesh side of the playpen, not in fear, but as if trying to get closer. Her small hands gripped the fabric, her tear-streaked cheeks still wet, but her mouth had curved into something that looked almost like recognition. The man from Suite 2407 stood frozen, tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair graying at the temples, expensive sweater, designer jeans, the kind of casual clothes that cost more than Kendra's monthly rent. But it was his face that made her breath catch, haunted, exhausted, and in this moment, absolutely devastated. He stared at Maya and Miles like they were ghosts, like they were impossible, like they were breaking his heart just by existing. "Sir?" Marcus's voice cut through the moment. "I apologize for the disturbance. We're handling—" But Preston Whitmore wasn't listening. His lips parted, shaped words that didn't come, and then, So quietly Kendra almost missed it, he began to hum. The melody was simple, soft, heartbreaking in a way she couldn't name. It floated through the corridor like a prayer, like a memory-made sound. And Miles turned his entire body toward it. Kendra felt her son shift in her arms, actually reaching with both hands toward this stranger, this white man in expensive clothes who had no connection to them, no reason to exist in their world. "No," she whispered, pulling Miles closer. "Baby, no." But Miles didn't cry, didn't scream. He just kept reaching, his small fingers opening and closing, wanting something she didn't understand. In the playpen, Maya had pulled herself to standing. Her chubby legs shook with the effort, but she didn't fall. She gripped the mesh with white-knuckle determination and reached too. Both of them, reaching for him. Preston took a step forward, then another, still humming that melody that seemed to come from somewhere deep and broken inside him. His hand shook as he extended it, and Kendra's protective instinct screamed at her to run, to take her babies and disappear before whatever was happening could happen. But she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only watch as Preston Whitmore's fingers touched Maya's outstretched hand. Her daughter smiled. Maya smiled at a stranger. The child who screamed when doctors approached, who clawed at her grandmother's face, who treated every human except Kendra as a threat, smiled at this man like he was sunlight after years of darkness. "What the hell?" Kendra breathed. Miles lunged forward with sudden, desperate strength, not in panic, in want. His small arms stretched so far Kendra thought he might hurt himself, and Preston instinctively reached for him, his other hand extending. "I shouldn't," Preston said, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't know them. I don't—" But Miles' fingers had already wrapped around Preston's thumb, and for the first time in his entire life, Miles was calm in a stranger's arms. The corridor felt like it had been plunged under water. Kendra could see Marcus's mouth moving, could see the other hotel guests staring. But she couldn't hear anything over the roaring in her ears. Preston stood there with one hand held by Maya, the other holding Miles's impossibly small fist, and tears were streaming down his face. Silent, relentless, as if something inside him had finally, catastrophically broken. "What did you do?" Kendra's voice came out strangled. "How did you make them stop? They never stop. They never—" "I don't know." Preston's words were barely audible. He was staring at Miles like the answer was written in the child's dark eyes. "I just heard them screaming, and I couldn't— That melody. My daughter used to—" He stopped, couldn't finish. But his thumb moved in small circles against Miles's palm, an unconscious gesture of comfort that looked like muscle memory. His daughter. Used to. Past tense. Can you believe what just happened? Drop a comment right now. Have you ever witnessed a moment of unexplainable connection like this? And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button. We're building a community of people who believe in the impossible, and we want you to be part of it. Mr. Whitmore. Marcus's voice had taken on a different tone now. Careful, respectful, the voice people used around money. "I apologize for any disturbance to your stay. We'll have Ms. Hayes remove—" "These children are my guests," Preston said quietly, not looking away from the twins. His voice carried the kind of authority that came from never being questioned. "Is there a problem?" Marcus froze. No, sir. No problem at all." "Good." Preston's thumb was still making those small circles. "Then perhaps someone could bring a few chairs, and maybe some water." It wasn't a request. Marcus nodded, gestured to another staff member, and within seconds, the corridor was emptying. Guests retreated to their rooms. Hotel staff scattered to fulfill Preston's unspoken commands. And Kendra Hayes stood there with her babies, one still in her arms, one holding hands with a stranger who made them smile, and wondered what kind of impossible thing had just happened in the marble corridor of the Grandview Hotel. Preston finally looked at her. His eyes were red-rimmed, ancient with grief. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't understand this either." But he was still humming, and the twins were still reaching, and Kendra realized with a certainty that terrified her that whatever had just begun, it wasn't going to end when her shift did. "Would you come inside?" Preston's voice was gentle, careful. "Just to talk. I promise I won't keep you long." Every instinct in Kendra's body screamed no. You didn't follow strange men into hotel suites. You didn't trust wealth and power when you had neither. You protected your babies above everything else. But Miles was still holding Preston's thumb, and Maya was still smiling. 10 minutes, Kendra said. Suite 2407 was another world, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that probably cost more than her car. The kind of luxury that made Kendra acutely aware of her yellow uniform, her worn sneakers, the stains on her shoulder from Miles's tears. But the twins didn't care about any of that. They stayed calm. Maya in her playpen, Miles in Kendra's arms, both watching Preston like he was the only solid thing in a shifting world. Preston moved to the kitchenette, his movements careful, deliberate. Like a man trying not to break. The melody I was humming, it was my daughter's favorite lullaby. Was, past tense again. My ex-wife composed it, he continued, pulling a bottle of water from the fridge. He didn't pour it, just held it. A variation on Debussy. Iris used to make me play it every night before bed. Every single night. His hand tightened on the bottle. She was 5 years old when she died. Car accident. 3 years ago. The words fell like stones into still water. I was driving, Preston said quietly. Black ice. I lost control for 3 seconds. That's all it took. 3 seconds and she was gone. Kendra's throat closed. She looked down at Miles, at his small body warm and alive against her chest, and couldn't imagine it. Couldn't survive imagining it. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Preston's laugh was hollow. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back. He finally looked at Kendra. That melody was hers. I haven't hummed it since the funeral. Couldn't. It hurt too much. But when I heard your children screaming, I don't know, something in me just broke open. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, scrolled through something, then turned it toward her. A music app, classical playlist. And there, third from the top, Reverie by Claude Debussy. This is it, the piece my ex-wife adapted. This is what I was humming. Kendra stared at the screen. The words blurred, came back into focus, blurred again. I played that during my pregnancy, she said. Her voice sounded far away. The doctor said it was high risk from the start. Placenta previa, preeclampsia, the twins weren't growing right. I was on bed rest for 4 months. Classical music was the only thing that kept them calm. They'd kick and thrash to everything else. But Debussy made them still. Preston's hand lowered slowly. You played this specific piece? On repeat, for hours every day. Kendra's heart was hammering now. They were born at 28 weeks. 8 weeks in the NICU. I almost died delivering them. And when they came home, they screamed. At everyone. Everything. They don't make eye contact. They don't let people touch them. 6 different doctors, and no one can tell me why without specialists I can't afford. She was crying now and didn't remember when it started. I've lost 3 jobs because of their screaming. I can't get help because I can't afford help. And they're getting worse, not better. And I don't know what to do anymore. The words kept coming. Years of exhaustion and fear spilling out in Preston Whitmore's luxury suite while her impossible children stayed calm for the first time in their lives. Preston was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. What if I could help? Kendra's defenses slammed back up. I don't need charity. It's not charity, Preston moved closer, careful not to startle Miles. These children responded to something I haven't been able to give anyone in 3 years. Peace. Connection. Something that feels like Iris is still somewhere in the world. His eyes were wet again. Let me help. Let me connect you with specialists. Real ones. The best ones. Please. This connection is giving us chills. If you're feeling this story, smash that like button and share it with someone who believes in signs and miracles. We're only 3 chapters in, and this journey is just beginning. Kendra looked at her twins. Maya had fallen asleep in the playpen, her small body relaxed in a way it never was. Miles's eyes were drooping against Kendra's shoulder, his breathing deep and even. They never slept like this. Never. They fought sleep like it was death itself. But here, in this stranger's suite, with that melody still hanging in the air like a bridge between grief and hope, her children were at peace. "One appointment," Kendra said finally. "Just one. And then we see." Preston nodded, something that might have been relief or gratitude or desperate hope crossing his face. "One appointment," he agreed. But they both knew this was already more than that. The melody had connected them. Debussy, a dead daughter, 2 impossible twins. And something neither of them understood, but both of them needed. One appointment. Kendra held Miles closer and wondered what she'd just agreed to. 2 weeks later, Kendra stood in the waiting room of a clinic that looked more like a luxury spa than a medical facility. Leather chairs, abstract art, the kind of quiet that money bought. Dr. Helena Brenner's private practice. The best pediatric trauma specialist in the country, according to Preston. The kind of doctor Kendra had only read about online, late at night, when hope felt like a cruel joke. Preston sat beside her, Miles on his lap, Maya in her stroller, holding Preston's finger. When Preston had tried to wait outside, both twins had screamed until the receptionist's face went pale. So he stayed. He always stayed now. 3 hours of testing. Observations. Questions that made Kendra's chest ache. Dr. Brenner was thorough, clinical, but not cold. She watched the way Preston hummed that melody, the way the twins' entire bodies relaxed when he did. Finally, in her office, with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, Dr. Brenner delivered the verdict. Reactive attachment disorder, RADI, stemming from birth trauma and prolonged NICU separation. The words were clinical, professional, but they landed like punches. Your twins' brains learn to associate human touch with pain in their first weeks of life, Dr. Brenner explained. Needles, tubes, procedures. Every touch meant fear. Their nervous systems are wired to protect against connection. Kendra's hands shook in her lap. She'd known something was wrong, but hearing it named, explained, made it real in a way that hurt worse than the not knowing. There's intensive therapy, Dr. Brenner continued. Occupational therapy, trauma-informed care, possibly medication as they grow. We're looking at years of treatment. How much? Kendra's voice came out strangled. Dr. Brenner glanced at Preston, then back to Kendra. For the full recommended plan, we're estimating $300,000, maybe more. The floor dropped out. Kendra made $28,000 a year. She did the math in seconds. It would take her over a decade to earn that much, and that was before rent, food, everything else that kept them alive. I'll cover it, Preston said. No hesitation. Like $300,000 was nothing. No. Kendra stood up too fast. I can't let you do that. I don't even know you. You know I'm someone who needs this as much as your children do. Preston's voice was quiet but firm. I haven't felt anything in 3 years. Your twins made me feel something. Let me do this. We're halfway through this incredible journey, and if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join the community that's helping us reach 1,000 subscribers. Every single one of you matters. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what happens next. Ms. Hayes, Dr. Brenner's voice cut through. Mr. Whitmore's involvement isn't optional. It's medically necessary. Your children have formed a secure attachment to him. Removing him now could cause severe regression. They need him. Kendra looked at her babies. At Miles, calm in Preston's arms. At Maya, smiling up at this man who was still a stranger, still impossible, still the only thing standing between her children and a lifetime of fear. Trial period, she whispered. 3 months. If it doesn't work, we stop. Preston nodded. Relief flooded his face. 3 months. But Kendra knew, deep in her bones, in that place where mothers know impossible things. This wasn't going to be 3 months. This was going to change everything. 3 months became a blur of therapy sessions, occupational therapy on Tuesdays, trauma counseling on Thursdays. Preston showed up to every single one, humming that melody when the twins got overwhelmed, and they were making progress. Small things. Maya making eye contact for 3 seconds, Miles letting a therapist touch his hand without screaming. But then Kendra's bank account started doing impossible things. First, her overdue rent, paid, in full. She stared at her phone screen until her eyes burned, certain it was a mistake. Didn't touch it. Waited for the bank to call and demand it back. Then her medical bills, the ones from the twins' NICU stay that she'd been paying $20 a month on for 18 months. Zero balance. Her student loans. Wiped clean. Car repairs she'd been avoiding. Suddenly handled. Groceries delivered to her door with no explanation. Kendra investigated. Called the bank. Traced the payments to a foundation with no name, no contact information, nothing. She knew. She found Preston at the Grandview Hotel on his monthly check-in. Caught him in the lobby, twins in their stroller, her hands shaking with fury. "What did you do?" Preston had the decency to look caught. "Kendra, my rent, my bills, all of it. That was you." He didn't deny it. "I've been researching RAD. I know what you need to focus on the twins. Let me help." "You can't just take over my life." Her voice cracked. "I'm not your charity project." "This isn't about you." Preston's frustration matched hers. "This is about them, about giving them a chance I couldn't give my daughter." The words echoed through the marble lobby. Guests turned to stare. Kendra felt the familiar shame of being too loud, too much, too black in a space that wasn't made for her. Then Miles made a sound. Not crying, not screaming. "Press a ton." The world stopped. Preston's face went white. Kendra couldn't breathe. Miles reached up from the stroller, his small face creased with distress. "Press ton." And Maya, her voice small and uncertain. "No. Fight." First words, both of them, at the same time. Did you catch that? The twins just spoke for the first time. If that gave you chills, hit that like button right now and tell us in the comments what you think happens next. This story is building to something incredible. Kendra dropped to her knees in front of the stroller, tears streaming. "Baby, you talked. You talked." Preston stood frozen, his hand over his mouth, his eyes flooding. The twins had spoken, not to ask for something, not to name an object, to stop the people they loved from hurting each other. Dr. Brenner's voice echoed in Kendra's memory from their next session. This is massive. They feel safe enough to use language, to mediate conflict. They're not just surviving anymore. They're connecting. And in that hotel lobby, with guests staring and her pride in pieces around her feet, Kendra finally understood. This wasn't charity. This was survival. For all of them. The estate sat 40 minutes outside the city, hidden behind iron gates and old oak trees. It was the kind of house that belonged in magazines. 3 stories of stone and glass. Gardens that went on forever. the kind of place that should have been filled with laughter and life. Instead, it felt like a mausoleum. Dr. Brenner recommended natural environment bonding, Preston said as he carried their bags inside. His voice was too casual, too careful. I thought a weekend away from the city might help. Kendra followed with the twins, taking in rooms that were spotless and empty. Everything expensive, nothing lived in. Like Preston had stopped existing the moment he bought this place. It's beautiful, she said, because what else could you say? Preston showed them the guest rooms, the kitchen, the playroom he'd clearly had prepared just for this visit. New toys still in packages, a safety gate installed. Everything perfect. Everything except the door at the end of the hall. White, closed, with a small painted rainbow that looked like a child's handprint. Maya saw it first. She pulled away from Kendra's hand and moved toward it like something was calling her. Miles followed, both of them pressing small palms against the wood, making sounds in their throats. Not words. Not yet. But distressed. What's in there? Kendra asked. Preston's face went gray. My daughter's room. His voice cracked. No one's been in there since. He couldn't finish. The twins wouldn't stop. They scratched at the door, their agitation building, the kind of distress they hadn't shown in months. Maya started crying. Miles joined her, and Kendra knew that sound, knew what came next if they didn't calm down. Preston. She touched his arm. They need to see. I can't. He was shaking. I haven't been able to go in there. 3 years and I can't even touch the handle. Then do it for them. Preston stared at the door like it might kill him. Then, with a hand that trembled so badly Kendra almost helped, he turned the handle. The room was frozen in time. Pink walls with hand-painted butterflies, a bookshelf overflowing with picture books, stuffed animals arranged on a small bed with princess sheets, an art table with dried-out markers and half-finished drawings. Everything exactly where a 5-year-old girl had left it. The twins rushed in, not hesitant, not afraid, like they'd been waiting their whole lives to find this room. Maya went straight for a stuffed elephant, hugging it to her chest. Miles pulled a wooden train from a toy box, his small fingers knowing exactly how to work the wheels. They were calm, completely, impossibly calm. And Preston broke. Kendra found him 10 minutes later, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, watching the twins play with Iris's toys. Tears streaming down his face in a way that suggested he'd been holding them back for 3 years. She sat beside him. Didn't speak. Just sat. Tell me about her, Kendra said finally. Preston's voice was raw. She was 5. Funny. So funny. She'd make up songs about everything. The grocery store, brushing teeth, rain. He wiped his face with shaking hands. I was driving her to school. Work called. Some crisis that seemed important. I looked down at my phone for 3 seconds. Maybe 4. And when I looked up, there was a truck. Black ice. I couldn't stop. His breath hitched. She died on impact. I walked away with bruises. My wife, Vivian, she was at home. She didn't even get to say goodbye. And she blamed me. God, she blamed me. I blamed me. Still do. The divorce was fast. Brutal. She took everything except this house because she said she couldn't stand to be anywhere Iris had been. And I've been here ever since. Barely alive. Just going through motions. He looked at Maya and Miles, at the way they played in his dead daughter's room like they belonged there. Your children gave me a reason to feel again. Even if it hurts. This moment, right here. This is what our channel is about. Real emotion, real transformation, real hope. If you're not subscribed, please hit that button now. We can't keep creating these stories without your support. Every subscriber helps us grow and tells us these stories matter. Kendra's throat was tight. They gave me a reason to keep fighting, too. I was drowning before you showed up. Working 3 jobs, losing all of them, watching my babies suffer and not being able to help. You saved us." "We saved each other," Preston said quietly. The twins climbed onto Iris's bed, curling into each other the way they always did. Within minutes, they were asleep. Peaceful. Safe. Preston stared at them for a long time. "They're the first children to be in this room since she died." His voice broke again. "And it feels right. Like maybe Iris sent them. Like maybe this is what she'd want." Kendra reached for his hand. He held on like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to Earth. And in that room full of ghosts and toy trains and sleeping children, they both understood. This wasn't about charity anymore. Wasn't about obligation or medical necessity or trying to fix what was broken. This was about survival. This was about becoming a family. Neither of them said it out loud. But they didn't need to. The twins were already home. 6 months changed everything. Maya spoke in full sentences now. "Mama, can I have juice, please?" Miles made eye contact, held it, even smiled at strangers sometimes. They let their therapists hug them, let their grandmother hold them without screaming. They were healing. Preston came to every therapy session. Learned every technique, spent every weekend at Kendra's apartment or bringing them to the estate. He knew Maya liked her sandwiches cut in triangles, knew Miles needed his blue blanket to sleep, knew the exact pitch to hum when they got overwhelmed. He was family. Kendra had started online business courses, management, accounting. Preston had found them, sent her the links. She didn't know yet that he'd paid for the entire program. She thought they were free. Everything was working. Everything was good. Until Vivian Whitmore walked into Preston's office on a Tuesday afternoon with a manila folder and murder in her eyes. She was exactly what Kendra had imagined. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of beautiful that came with money and maintenance. But her eyes were ice. "End this," she said without preamble. No greeting. No pretense. "End this immediately, or I'll destroy you." Preston stood from his desk. "Vivian, what are you—" She threw the folder down. Photographs spilled out. Preston with Maya and Miles at the park. Preston carrying Kendra's groceries. Preston at therapy sessions. Kendra and Preston having coffee while the twins played. "I've had you followed for 3 months, Vivian said. Her voice was deadly calm. "I have documentation of every interaction, every dollar you've spent, every moment with that woman and those children." "Her name is Kendra," Preston said quietly. "I don't care what her name is." Vivian's composure cracked just slightly. "You're exploiting a vulnerable black woman and her disabled children for some sick redemption story. Wealthy white man plays savior. It's disgusting. I'm helping them. You're using them to replace Iris." Vivian's voice rose. "You're playing house with someone else's children because you killed ours." The words landed like bullets. Preston's face went white. "Get out." "I've already contacted 3 major media outlets," Vivian continued as if he hadn't spoken. "I have lawyers ready to file complaints with child services. Questions about your intentions, your mental state, the power dynamics between you and Ms. Hayes." She leaned forward. "I'll make this simple. End your involvement with this family. Refocus on your company. The board is concerned about your distraction. I represent investors who are ready to force you out unless you get your priorities straight." Preston's laugh was hollow. "That's what this is really about. The company. You want my shares. I want you to stop embarrassing Iris's memory." Vivian's eyes glittered. "End this, or I make sure you lose everything, starting with your reputation. The media will love this story. Billionaire's questionable relationship with poor single mother. The racial dynamics alone will keep them fed for months." She picked up her folder. "You have 48 hours. Choose wisely." The door closed behind her with a quiet click that sounded like a gunshot. Preston went straight to Kendra's apartment explained everything, every word, every threat. Kendra listened with her hands pressed flat against her kitchen table, her face unreadable. "I told you," she said finally. Her voice was dead. "I told you this would happen. People like us don't get to have people like you in our lives without consequences." "I don't care what she does to me," Preston said. "I'm not leaving." "You should." Kendra looked up at him, and her eyes were wet. "You have to. I can't let you throw your life away for us. Your company, your reputation, everything you've built. I can't be responsible for that." The stakes just got real. If Kendra's courage is inspiring you, drop a comment telling us what you'd do in her position. Would you walk away to protect him or fight? Hit that like button and share this with someone who needs to see what real courage looks like. "You're not responsible." "No. Papa, stay." They both froze. Maya stood in the doorway to the living room, tears streaming down her face. Miles was right behind her, his small face crumpled. "No go," Miles said. His voice shook. "Papa, stay." Papa. They'd started calling him that 3 weeks ago. Neither adult had corrected them. Preston dropped to his knees. Both twins ran to him, wrapped their small arms around his neck, and held on like they were drowning. "Don't go," Maya sobbed against his shoulder. "Don't leave us." Kendra covered her mouth with both hands, tried to hold back the tears. Failed completely. Preston looked up at her over the twins' heads. His face was wrecked. "I'm not fighting for them anymore," he said quietly. "I'm fighting for us, for our family, because that's what we are now." Kendra sank into the chair. Let the tears come, because he was right. They weren't Preston and Kendra and the twins anymore. They were a family, and Vivian Whitmore was about to find out that some families were worth going to war for. "Okay," Kendra whispered. "We fight." Preston pulled her down to the floor with them, all four of them holding each other in that tiny apartment kitchen. A broken billionaire, a struggling mother, 2 miracle children, a family. "We fight," Preston agreed. And outside, the storm Vivian had promised was already gathering. Vivian struck like lightning. The press conference was professional, polished, devastating. She stood behind a podium in a conference room that cost more per hour than Kendra made in a week, and she destroyed them with carefully chosen words. "I'm deeply concerned about the welfare of 2 vulnerable children who have become the focus of my ex-husband's unhealthy obsession." The headlines came fast. "Tech billionaire's disturbing obsession with cleaners' children." Preston Whitmore's savior complex exposed. Wealthy white man's questionable relationship with poor black mother. They were everywhere. Every news site, every social media platform. The story people loved to hate. By morning, reporters had found Kendra's apartment. They ambushed her on the stairs. Cameras, microphones, questions that felt like knives. "Are you using your children to trap a billionaire?" "How much money has he given you?" "Do you feel guilty exploiting your children's disability?" Kendra pushed through with the twins clutched against her, saying nothing. What could she say? That love wasn't exploitation? That healing wasn't a trap? They wouldn't believe her anyway. Inside, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Preston calling, texting, begging her not to engage. But it was already too late. Preston's company board called an emergency meeting. Investors were panicking. Stock prices falling. The optics were terrible. A billionaire getting too close to his hotel's cleaning staff and her disabled children. It looked exactly the way Vivian wanted it to look. "Step down temporarily," his CFO said. "Let this blow over." "No," Preston said. "We're not asking." That came from Gerald Hutchins, Preston's oldest business partner. 20 years of friendship. "The board has voted. Either you step back voluntarily, or we remove you." Preston stared at him. You're working with Vivian. Gerald didn't deny it. She made a compelling case. And frankly, Preston, you haven't been yourself since this whole thing started. Maybe some distance would be good for everyone. Everything was collapsing. Everything they'd built. Everything that mattered. That night, Kendra made a decision. She called her own press conference. Didn't tell Preston. Didn't ask permission. Just contacted the same media outlets that had ambushed her and told them she had a statement. They came. Of course they came. Cameras and reporters and people hungry for more drama. Kendra stood in front of them with Maya and Miles, her hands shaking but her voice steady. My name is Kendra Hayes. I'm 26 years old. I work 3 jobs to support my children, who were born with a condition that no one could fix. Until Preston Whitmore. She pulled out a folder. Medical records, therapy reports, documented milestones. This man never asked for recognition, never took credit, never demanded anything. He funded treatment that gave my children a chance at a normal life. Her voice got stronger. You want to know if he's exploiting us? Look at the evidence. My children couldn't speak. Now they can. They couldn't be touched. Now they can hug. They couldn't connect with anyone. Now they have someone who loves them unconditionally. The cameras flashed. She didn't blink. He didn't save us. We saved each other. Because that's what broken people do. We find each other in the dark and choose to heal together. She looked directly into the camera. At Vivian, wherever she was watching. I'm sorry you lost your daughter. I'm sorry you're in pain. But don't use your grief to destroy the family your ex-husband has built with us. Kendra's voice dropped, became steel. If you come after him, you come after all of us. And I promise you, we won't go quietly. She stepped back, and Maya and Miles, coached by their therapist for this exact moment, stepped forward. Maya's small voice was clear. Papa good. Papa love us. Miles nodded, his dark eyes serious. We love Papa. If Kendra's speech just gave you goosebumps, please hit that like button and share this video. This is the kind of courage we need more of in the world. And if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Join our community. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, and every single one matters. The moment exploded. Video clips everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. The twins' faces, so earnest and honest, saying those simple words. Papa good. Papa love us. The narrative shifted like a tidal wave. People saw Kendra's documentation, the medical evidence. The before and after videos she'd included. Maya screaming at doctors, Miles clawing at strangers, then both of them speaking, smiling, playing. They saw the truth. This wasn't exploitation. This wasn't a savior complex. This was a family that found each other when they all needed saving. Comments flooded in. This is what real healing looks like. Those children aren't being exploited. They're being loved. Vivian Whitmore should be ashamed. The public turned. Fast and fierce. Because people understood brokenness. People understood finding hope in unexpected places. By the next morning, 3 major outlets had published think pieces defending Preston. Child psychologists went on record supporting the therapeutic relationship. Dr. Brenner gave an interview explaining ARAD and how attachment figures outside biological parents were not only acceptable, but often necessary. Preston's board called another emergency meeting, this time to apologize. Gerald Hutchins resigned. I was wrong, he said simply. I let Vivian manipulate me. I'm sorry. The stock rebounded. Investors calmed. The panic that Vivian had created evaporated like morning fog. Preston went to Kendra's apartment, found her on the couch with the twins asleep against her, exhausted from the emotional day. He sat beside her, took her hand. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. Yes, I did. Kendra looked at him. Her eyes were tired but fierce. You were willing to lose everything for us. I had to show the world what we were really fighting for." "What are we fighting for?" Preston asked. Kendra glanced at the twins, at Maya's small hand fisted in Preston's shirt even in sleep, at Miles' head on her lap. "Family," she said simply. "We're fighting for family." Preston pulled her close, all four of them together on that worn couch in that tiny apartment. "Then we already won," he whispered. And for the first time in 3 years, Preston Whitmore believed in something again. Hope. 2 years later. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and hope. 500 people filled the grand ballroom of the Grandview Hotel, the same hotel where everything began, where 2 screaming children and 1 broken man found each other in a marble corridor and changed the world. Tonight was the gala celebrating the Silent Voices Initiative's 2nd anniversary. Preston Whitmore stood backstage, adjusting Miles's tiny bow tie for the 3rd time. The 4-year-old squirmed with excitement. "Papa, stop," Miles giggled. "I look good already." Preston's heart still caught every time. "Papa, 2 years and it still felt like a miracle." "You look perfect," he agreed. Beside them, Kendra helped Maya with her violin. The instrument was child-sized but real. Maya held it like it was made of glass and gold. "I'm nervous," Maya whispered. "You've practiced 100 times," Kendra said softly. "You know this melody by heart." "Because it's our song," Miles said seriously. "The song that made us a family." Debussy's Reverie, the melody that connected them all. Preston's company had transformed in 2 years. He'd restructured everything around accessibility technology and mental health resources. Products designed for children with special needs, apps that helped families navigate therapy, tools that made connection possible. The board had tried to stop him, called him unfocused, reckless. He'd presented his plan anyway, showed them that purpose-driven business generated loyalty, profit, and legacy, that people wanted to support companies that gave back. He won, and the company doubled its value. 60% of his personal shares now funded the Iris Foundation, treatment for families with special needs. Children. No one turned away for inability to pay. Ever. 10,000 families helped in 2 years. 10,000 children like Maya and Miles getting the chance they deserved. Vivian's vendetta had backfired spectacularly, her corporate manipulation exposed. Her law firm dropped her quietly. Last Preston heard, she'd moved to Europe. He hoped she found peace there. Forgiveness, maybe. For both of them. Kendra graduated business school 6 months ago. Valedictorian. Preston had enrolled her secretly, paid the tuition, and she'd discovered it after 3 weeks of classes. She'd been furious, then grateful, then determined to earn every single credit. The Silent Voices Initiative was hers. Her vision, her leadership, comprehensive support for families dealing with attachment disorders and childhood trauma, therapy, resources, community, hope. She'd built something extraordinary. The lights dimmed. The audience quieted. Maya and Miles walked onto the stage hand in hand. So small. So brave. Maya lifted her violin. Miles climbed onto the piano bench. They looked at each other, nodded, and began. The melody floated through the ballroom like a prayer. Simple, haunting, beautiful. Maya's bow moved with careful precision. Miles' small fingers found every note. The audience wept. Preston wept. Kendra held his hand and wept beside him. Because 3 years ago, these children couldn't be touched without screaming, couldn't make eye contact, couldn't trust the world enough to exist in it. Now they were performing Debussy for 500 people with confidence and grace. The song ended. Silence. Then thunderous applause. Maya and Miles bowed together, grinned at each other, ran off stage into their parents' arms. Preston carried them both back out for his speech. Couldn't let them go. 3 years ago I was a ghost, he said into the microphone. His voice carried across the ballroom. I had everything: money, power, success. And I had nothing. I'd lost my daughter, lost myself, lost any reason to keep going. He looked down at Maya and Miles. Then 2 children who couldn't speak, couldn't trust, couldn't connect, reached for me in a hotel hallway, and they saved my life. His voice cracked. Healing isn't about forgetting the past. It's about honoring it while building something new. Iris will always be my daughter, but Maya and Miles taught me I could love again without betraying her memory. He set the twins down. Let Kendra take the stage. She stood there in an elegant dress, diploma earned, organization thriving, and Preston thought about the woman in the yellow uniform who'd been so afraid 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was drowning, Kendra said. Her voice was steady, strong. Working 3 jobs, watching my children suffer, believing I'd failed them because I couldn't afford the help they needed. She smiled at Preston. Then a stranger hummed a melody, and everything changed. This organization exists because one man chose kindness over isolation, because 2 children chose trust over fear, because I chose to believe that accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. She paused for effect. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that the Iris Foundation is funding Silent Voices initiatives in 15 states. We're expanding, growing, reaching more families, changing more lives. The applause was deafening. This is why we do what we do. Stories like this exist because you support this channel. Every view, every like, every share, every subscription tells us to keep going. We're building a community that believes redemption is possible, that transformation is real, and that kindness changes everything. If this story moved you, and we know it did, subscribe right now. Turn on notifications. Share this with 5 people who need hope today. Drop a heart emoji in the comments if you believe in second chances. Help us hit 1,000 so we can keep bringing you stories that matter. 1 week later, they stood in a courtroom. The adoption hearing. Preston officially becoming what he'd already been for 2 years. Papa. Legally. Permanently. The judge smiled down at Maya and Miles. Do you understand what's happening today? Maya nodded seriously. Papa's becoming our forever papa. Not replacing our other daddy, Miles added carefully. They'd practice this. But honoring what's real. The judge's eyes were wet. In that case, it's my honor to grant this adoption. Congratulations to your family. Preston scooped both twins up, held them so tight. Forever, he whispered. Papa forever, Maya and Miles shouted together. Kendra watched through tears, thought about how they'd all been broken, how they'd healed each other, how love wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was choice. They walked out of the courthouse together. Not a billionaire and his charity case. A family built on transformation and love. 5 years ago, Kendra Hayes was invisible. A cleaner society looked through. Today, she's changing policy, influencing legislation, building systems that transform lives. Preston Whitmore was a ghost haunted by guilt. Today, he's a father, an advocate, a man rebuilt by purpose. Maya and Miles couldn't speak, couldn't trust, couldn't connect. Today, they're thriving. Brilliant. Proof that healing is possible. This isn't a story about a savior. It's a story about what happens when broken people choose to rebuild together, when kindness becomes action, when transformation becomes legacy. Some people never get a second chance. Some people get it in a hotel hallway at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday when 2 children reach for a stranger and change everyone's life forever. Thank you for being part of this journey. We'll see you in the next one, where another incredible story is waiting to unfold.